been on a roller coaster ride before? Yeah. Well, to me, that's how this story is. It's like a roller coaster ride with all these turns and twists and everything and drops. To me, that's how David's life is, kind of. So, David, I'm going to kind of get, because I got some new ones in here. David had sinned by committing adultery with Bathsheba. And then he had her husband killed by none other than Joab. So kind of this lesson is about Joab. He's one of our central figures. God had indicated David for his sin through Nathan the prophet. And you know, all this stuff that's happening to David is because of his sin. And a lot of times you think, well, when I do something wrong, it's not going to hurt nobody but myself. But as you can see from David, it hurt everybody that was with him. It hurt his nation. It hurt his family. Everybody that associated with David ended up getting hurt some way. And a lot of them died even because of what David done. And God told David that all this was going to happen before it ever happened. But David was pressured by Joab to bring Absalom back to Jerusalem. In time, Absalom succeeded in undermining David's reign. You know, Absalom was set by the gate, and he was this gorgeous looking man with long flowing hair. And he'd sit there and he had all the people of Israel eating out of his hands. He said, oh, this is what I'll do for you. He always promised them the moon. So David was in his palace and he wouldn't never let them get past him to go talk to David. And Absalom, David let it happen. David could have stopped it. But it was his son. And with his kids, he turned a blind eye to what they were doing. And it come up on him in a bad way. So David was preoccupied with the revolution that it forced him, his family, and everyone who followed him to leave Jerusalem. They were on the run. Absalom wanted to kill everyone that had supported David. So God spared David. He gave his army a victory over Absalom's forces and removed Absalom through Joab, even though Joab was told not to kill Absalom. So David is about to return to Jerusalem and resume his reign over the nation of Israel. To win favor of the people and perhaps remove a thorn in his flesh, which was Joab, he removed him as commander and put in Amasa. And Amasa was the general who helped Absalom. But David he wanted to try to appease the Israelites, because they had followed, these people, Israel, had followed, the ones in the town had followed Absalom. They didn't follow David out of town. They were traitors. They were treasonous. They were traitors. But by the end of our text, Joab was out of a fit of jealousy. He ended up killing Amasa because he saw where he was going to. And it doesn't stop, however. David has been forced to flee Jerusalem due to the revolution. While he never abdicated his throne, Absalom had acted as king for a few days until he was defeated. Okay, David is king. David's not king. David is invited to be king. David's kingdom is divided. David's kingdom is united. That's why I said it's like a roller coaster ride for David. One minute he's fleeing, one minute he's on the throne as king, and the next minute he's fleeing again. It's like David's in peril all the time. And to me, David is kind of like we all are. One minute we'll be all happy and up serving the Lord, and the next minute we'll be running away, won't we? That's how David was. One minute he was happy serving the Lord, and then the next minute he was committing sin. But he always repented, and God always took him back. So this David was a man after God's own heart, and God showed him so much grace like he does us. So on top of all of this gore and violence, because Joab killed Absalom. He was hung in a tree by his hair. He killed him. Not only that, he made out like he was Amasa's friend. He grabbed him by his beard and stabbed him. On top of that, we'll get to it later, but when another revolt started, that guy's head was cut off and thrown over the wall. So this story has all the makings of a movie, don't it? But it's not for this reason alone, not even for this reason primarily, that we should read it carefully. This is inspired religious history. It's penned by a prophet, and it's a story with a message for us to hear and heed. Okay, I'm going to be in chapter 19, 2 Samuel. I'm going to start at verse 9. All the people were quarreling throughout the tribes of Israel, saying, "The king delivered us from the hand of our enemies and saved us from the hand of the Philistines. But now he has fled out of the land from Absalom. However, Absalom, whom we anointed over us, has died in battle. Now then, why are you silent about bringing the king back?" Here they all are arguing over why they hadn't brought the king back. The Israelites find themselves in a dilemma, don't they? So there's a whole lot of arguing and finger pointing is going on in Israel. The people anointed Absalom in David's place, but now he's dead. This seems to be a conclusion that now they're going to bring David back, that he will return and resume his role of Israel's king. But how is this going to happen? What should they do? What could they do? And what will they do? They're arguing about all these things. One more thing contributes to such a sticky problem. These are the same people, like I said a while ago, who committed treason against David. They were with Absalom. They wanted him as king. They anointed him as king. These people who are arguing are the people of Israel, those who remained there in Jerusalem. So who would want to step forward to bring back the man they rejected, the one against whom they committed high treason? No wonder there is a leadership problem here. Okay, but our text here, there's a question it asks and it demands an answer. And the king said, King David, in case you need to know, we're in chapter 19. I'm starting in verse 11 now. And the king David sent to Zadok and to Abner the priest, saying, Speak unto the elders of Judah, saying, Why are you last to bring the king back to the house? I want you to notice 3 things about this. The king had been absent for some time. He was not absent because he wanted to be absent. He was absent because he had been forced to leave. Loyalty to his king, David, had been lost to another leader, Absalom. Faithfulness to the king was now faithfulness. It was not David's desire or choosing to leave. He'd been forced to leave. He knew that if he did not leave, his own son would kill him. And that's a bad predicament, isn't it? To know that your own son is willing to kill you, his brothers, his sisters, anybody that come between him and the kingdom. His subjects had rebelled against him. They changed their love for another. They thought the grass was greener on the other side. They thought they were getting a better deal with Absalom, more attention, more caring. They'd get to be more in his church, his kingdom. They'd get used more in Absalom's kingdom. They'd finally get to position they were wanting in his kingdom. They would finally get the recognition they thought they deserved. They had a new leader. They were sure to get their way. They wanted to serve Absalom. Absalom was young. He was good looking. He would be so much better to lead them instead of this old, fogey old man. But what was they missing here? David had been anointed by God. His kingdom, Absalom's kingdom, could not stand because God had chosen him. Just like God's chosen us. God loved David, and he was going to protect David. He was going to take care of him. See, the people wanted something new, something different, something to make them feel better. We live in a church world today where the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, has been absent for some time. Not because he chose to leave, not because he wanted to go somewhere else, but because people's loyalty has changed. God is no longer welcome in a lot of services. Just like the king here was not welcome in his own kingdom. Hey, God no longer has a place in people's hearts. Oh, they still talk about him. They sing about him. They do things in his name. But just like Jesus said in Matthew 7:22, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. You know why it's become that way in the church? And I'm not saying it's our church. But you look around on Wednesday night and Sunday night, these pews. Where is everybody at? They're either on this side or this side. Nobody's in the middle here. What? I know. I'm talking about the people. Yes. And you go to any church, any given time, and you look at the cars in the parking lot, there's very many of them. People always have something else before God to do before they want to serve Him. But then they get up there and, oh, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. Yeah, well, they're not even a weekend Christian. Most of them don't even show up. Okay, I done this illustration. I done this illustration, and I wish I had brought it, because, okay, let's say, I'm going to do this right here. Okay, you're going to have to use your imagination. This right here is an orange tree. This right here, little orange, is on this tree. And it's been sitting here, and it's been growing, and it's been just all happy. Then all of a sudden it falls off this tree. And it sits there. What's going to happen to that orange? It's going to dry up and die. And that's how it is with a lot of people in the church. Once you fall away from the church and you have no structure, what's going to happen? You're going to dry up and die. I'm not saying you can't be a Christian at home, but the Bible, we're not supposed to forsake ourselves from assembly. We have to have structure, discipline. Because eventually you will dry up and die. And I had read this story one time about this preacher that came to this man's house. And as he's sitting there, he had a fireplace, and he had a fire blowing in it, growing. Well, he went, and there was an ember in there, and it was just one. And he took it out and laid it down on the hearth. And he said, as long as that ember's in there with all the other fire, what's going to happen to it? It's going to stay warm, it's going to burn, it's going to grow. But when he took that out and laid it out on the hearth, what do you think happened to it? It died out. Got cold, withdrawn, it quit coming, it quit attending. And I know so many people, family of mine, that was big in church, their kids were big in church, and now their kids know nothing about God. Because they quit going. They quit taking their children to church. Because if you do not teach your kids about the Lord, how are they going to learn it? They're not going to learn it at school. Unless they go to a Christian school. So where are they going to learn it at? If they're not learning it at home, they're going to get into where people are. Or they have their tablets or TV or whatever, all these celebrities, and they want to be like them. Or to be seen? Oh, for a funeral. See, the devil has painted a greener pasture just on the other side of the cross. And the church, for most parts, has laid down the cross of Christ, has climbed the fence of compromise, and been grazing in the cow fields of carnality for years. That cross means nothing to them. The true church of Jesus Christ is nowhere where she used to be. Full of power, Holy Ghost, and full of victory. Because the King has been absent so long. We've replaced the King with celebrities, sensationalism. We want a show. We want to be entertained. We don't come to church to do true worship. Most people don't. They want to go see what's going on, want to see what Mary had on last Sunday for church. I remember that even happened when I was a kid. I remember we'd go to church just to see what hats all the women had on. Or they'd go so they could talk about somebody else to somebody. That's how mine were too. I'm serious. They put us on a bus so they could sleep in on the church van. So it hasn't changed. And as the world gets worse and the devil gets more prominent, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Especially for our young people, because the devil wants to kill, steal, and destroy. See, 2 Timothy has been shoved right out the church doors. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that is needed, not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And these clowns on TV that get up preaching another gospel, this prosperity gospel, are destroying the true church of Jesus Christ with their doctrines and their erroneous teachings. And the church is eating it up. I know people now that instead of coming to church and sitting and listening to the word preached, they'll go to Birmingham, Memphis, they'll go 2 hours out of the way just to go see one of these people instead of going to church. They follow the people instead of Christ. See, the king is absent because of compromise. The church has come more worldly, and the world has come more churchy, and there no longer remains a distinction between the two. Many are acting religious, but have not changed from what they were. They put on a persona that they love the Lord. They're also religious and they worship the Lord. But then when they get out in the world, they start cussing and talking just like everybody else. And I know from when I worked, that's how they did. All these people would get up and sing on Sunday morning, and then they'd be in our break room cussing like a sailor. And that's how people have come into the world like that. And you know, that's what's running people away from the church. Because they see all these people that do act like this. Christians are their own worst enemy. If you're a true Christian, if you're not, you just want people to think you are. They play the game, they act like they are, but only God knows their hearts. But we have to show people who we are. We don't have to have a shirt that says, I'm a Christian. Yes, our life should be that, showing people who we really are, how much we love other people. What was the greatest commandment? Love one another. Jesus said that, for us to love one another. See, compromise has not just crept into our churches, it's waltzed right down the aisles and hugged the pews. The message of sanctification, consecration, and holiness is being set apart from this world and almost lost forever. We're just about tore 2 Corinthians 6:17 right out of the Bible. It don't even really exist anymore. Wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord. Touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that you should show forth the praises of him who have called you out in darkness into his marvelous light. The church has compromised eternal standards of holiness right out the door along with God himself. For God declared to us to be ye holy as I am holy. That's external and internal. Purity of heart and purity of mind. The churches are failing. They're failing our people. They're failing us. They're failing our young people more than anything. They want to stand up there and preach to them, but they don't want to, reach out to them, grow them. That's what I'd say, grow. Let them grow in the Lord. They just want to stand up there and tell them what they've done wrong, but they don't want to tell them God loves you. That's what my grandkids, I talk to them and ask them, okay, why don't you want to go to church? There ain't nothing there. They don't care nothing about me. I had one granddaughter that was going to this big church, and she loved going because it had a great youth group and everything. Well, she had surgery. Nobody ever called her. She missed for about 6 weeks because she had no way of going. She couldn't drive. Nobody ever called her and checked on her. She said, they didn't care nothing about me. Yes. And when you're that young and it happens to you, what does it show you about church, people? It does. So it makes it bad. Lastly, the king had been absent because of lack of commitment. And I know this word is hard to be found anymore. And why is commitment missing? Because it takes work. We're living in a lazy generation of people who would rather take the shortcuts than pay the price and do things right. God used to be the center of people's lives. Church used to be the main focus of people's activities. Now, if we have time, we'll go to church. If we have time, we'll think about God, we'll pray, we'll read our Bible. Only if we have time. If we have any extra money, we might give some of it to the offering. And we are more focused on extracurricular activities than we are church. And when my kids were growing up, I'm a lot older than some of you, they would never thought about having something on Wednesday or Sunday night for the kids to do practice. Leah just had cheerleader practice not too long ago on a Wednesday night. Sunday night, they have all kinds of stuff going on, practice. We go by that field and it's on all the time. People do not care anymore. All they care about is their own personal interest. And you know why? Because our priorities have changed. God is no longer important to us. Church is an option, not a must. The king is absent because of lack of commitment among the people. You know why Absalom got as far as he did and David had to leave? Because the people were not committed to God. You notice it never said anything about God in there. What God wanted is what the people wanted. That's why they chose him. See, the people were not committed to David like they should have been in the first place, and it was easy for Absalom to steal their hearts away from their king. If you're really committed to God, You will not allow the devil to come in here and steal your commitment, your worship, your praise, your testimony, your praying, your faithfulness, your loyalty. And after David had won the victory and Absalom was destroyed, it was time for David to return to his rightful place as king. But David did not return right away. He was not going back as a conqueror, and that's what he was, forcing his way back to the throne. That's how a lot of kings done back then. They went in there and told the people, you're going to worship me. See, he wanted to come back because they wanted him back. And that's how the King of Kings is. Jesus is not going to force himself on us. We have to want it. We have to want it with every being of us. We have to want him. He's not just going to pop up one day and say, well, I think I'm back. You got to want it. And that was why in verse 11 the king sent to Zadok and Abner the priest, saying, speak unto the elders of Judea, saying, why are ye last to bring the king back to his house? Seeing the speech of all Israel is come to the king, even to his house. See, verse 9 alerted us to the fact that there was strife among the people. Perhaps this was all the strife among them, not a dispute whether the king should be brought back at all, because they all agreed that it should be done. But whose fault it was that he had to leave to start with? As usual in these cases, everyone justified himself and blamed everyone else, his neighbor. The people laid fault on the elders on the people, and one tribe on another. Isn't that like a lot of Christians? Everybody else's fault. That's why I don't come to church. I don't feel God in there. Wow, that preacher, he preaches so long. That music's so loud, I can't hardly stand it. But finally, the people got together and decided to have the king back. And where did I get to? Oh, here it is. I read 11, I'm on 12. You are my brothers, you are my bone and flesh. Why should you be the last to bring the king? Say to Amasa, are you not my bone and my flesh? May God do to me and more also, if you will not be my commander of the army before me continually in place of Joab. Thus he turned the hearts of all the men of Judea as one, so that they sent word to the king, saying, return you and all your servants. The king then returned and came as far as Jordan, and Judea came to Gilgal in order to meet the king, to bring the king across Jordan. Then Shimei, the son of Gera, Benjamite, who was with Balaam, hurried and came down with the men of Judea to meet the king. 17. There was 1,000 men with Benjamin with him, and Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons and 20 servants with him. And they rushed to the Jordan before the king. Then they kept crossing the ford to bring over the king's household and do what was good in his sight. See, David was in Manhattan, and when he was told that they wanted him back, here he starts going to go over the Jordan. And who is the first one do you see that's right there trying to get in his good graces? Who was hurling rocks at him and kicking up the dirt at him and cursing him? And Shimei. Uh-huh. and he was so determined that what did he bring with him? You think he was a little afraid? He brought 1,000 Benjamites with him. See, David sends words to Zadok and Abner, and they were on David's side. You know, they were sent back into Jerusalem so they could send their sons to tell them what was going on. They was his spies is what they were. So now he's sent word to them to tell them, okay, do they want me back or not? So David's tribe is Judea. And the tribe which first anointed David as their king when he was in Hebron. This is David's closest kinsman. It's logical they would want to be the leaders to bringing David back home, wouldn't it? To Jerusalem. Because this was his people, this was his family, his brothers. Everyone in his family was of Judea. So David makes it easier for the people by saying, I'm going to make Amasa my leader now. Because, you know, they didn't really trust Joab anymore. And Amasa had been with Absalom, and so instead of killing him, he decided to make a gesture that, okay, Amasa is going to be over my armies now. So David told him that. So he told them, the words come to them, and the people of Judea assembled at Gilgal to assist David and those with him to crossing of the river. So, and to welcome him back as their king. In addition, the people of Judea, a good-sized delegation of Israelites were present, representing the other 10 tribes. Among them were Meshbosheth, Ziba, his servant, along with his sons and servants, Shimei, accompanied by 1,000 Benjamites. And Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down, 18, verse 18. And Shimei, the son of Gera, fell down before the king as he was about to cross the Jordan. 19. So he said to the king, Let not my Lord consider me guilty, nor remember what your servant did wrong on the day when my lord the king came out from Jerusalem, so that the king would take it to heart. For your servant knows that I have sinned. Therefore, behold, I have come today, the first of all of the house of Joseph, to go down to meet my lord the king. But Abishai, the son of Zerah, said, Shall not Shimei be put to death for this, because he cursed the Lord's anointed? David then said, What have I to do with you, O sons of Zerah, that you should this day be an adversary to me? Should any man not be put to death in Israel today? For do I not know that I am king over Israel today? The king said to Shimei, You shall not die. Thus the king swore to him. See, he's no stranger to us, our David, is he? He is descendant of Saul, who harassed David by throwing rocks at him when he was at his lowest point on the run from his son killing him. So here he's going out, he hurled rocks, he accused him, he hurled insults at him. And Abishai, he wanted to kill him right then. But David wouldn't let him. So David assumed God was letting this happen in some way by rebuking him through his loud mouth. And now on his return, David must pass through Bahurim, Shimei's hometown. He knows he's in serious trouble. So that's why he bows down and asks for forgiveness. And you see, Shimei, he was convicted of his folly and sin and eager to demonstrate his repentance to David to seek forgiveness. He also brings 1,000 Benjamites with him, who also express their submission to David as their king. And he did not beat around the bush, did he? He bowed right down and asked for forgiveness right then. He confessed his sin, his folly, and pleads with David's forgiveness. But once again, Abishai, you saw what he wanted to do. He wanted to kill him right there. He wanted to execute the troublemaker and be rid of him for all. But David refused to do this. Not only rebuking him, but his brother Joab, who was obviously behind him in the intended execution. This is a day of reconciliation. He wanted his people to be reunited. Could you imagine if he had went ahead and let him kill? What kind of mess this would have made? The Benjamites would have been mad because this guy was killed. And Israel said, "Oh, you don't mean nothing that you said." So he knew there would be no executions, even though Shimei deserved to die because he had cursed the ruler, the king. See, David assures him, "You shall not die." And if you want to know where that's at, it's in Exodus 22:28.
So he said, you said a while ago that he thought that God was allowing him
To curse him.
to curse him.
Because that's what David thought. He was depressed. You know, his son, he was on the run. His son was trying to kill him. And he thought God had put this guy out there to curse him and tell him everything he'd done wrong.
So basically like Saul thought about David.
Yeah. See, he was over.
Well, kind of, Saul thought David was out to kill him.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay, 24. Then Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king. And he had neither cared for his feet, nor trimmed his mustache, nor washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he came home in peace. It was when he came from Jerusalem to meet the king that the king said to him, "Why did you not go with me, Mephibosheth?" So he answered, "Oh, my lord the king, my servant deceived me. For your servant said, I will saddle a donkey for myself, that I may ride on it and go with the king, because your servant is lame. Moreover, he has slandered your servant to my lord the king. But my lord the king is like an angel of God. Therefore do what is good in your sight. For all my father's household was nothing but dead men before my lord the king. Yet you set my servant among those who ate at your table. What right do I have yet that I should complain any more to the king?" So the king said to him, "Why do you still speak of your affairs? I have decided. You and Ziba shall divide the land." Mephibosheth said to the king, "Let him even take it all, since my lord the king has come safely to his own house." See, when David first became king, him and Jonathan had made a pact when David was on the run from Saul. Jonathan was Saul's son. Jonathan and David loved each other. Jonathan always helped David. He'd help him on the run. He'd meet him. He'd run interference with him, with the king. He always had David's back. So the last time they saw each other before Jonathan died, David and Jonathan made a pact that if anything happened to him, Jonathan knew that he couldn't be king. But he asked him to remember his family, to always remember them. And they made a covenant that David, when he became king, that he would take his family into consideration, because he loved Jonathan that much. So Ziba and his son, when he got king, he asked, is there anybody left? Because, a lot of Saul's sons had been killed in battle with Saul. But when Mephibosheth was only 5 years old when David became king. So the nurse, back then when a king come in and took over the palace, they would kill everybody, the family, because they didn't want an uprising. Well, this nurse didn't know that David was going to come in there and take care of Mephibosheth. She took off with him and run when Saul got killed, and she fell on him and dropped him and caused him to be lame in both feet. So he couldn't walk. So David went and found out that there was still somebody left. So when he did, he brought him into his kingdom and told him he would sit at the table with him and be like one of his sons. He loved Jonathan that much. He accepted him just like he was a son. Well, when David had to run and leave the kingdom because of Absalom, he thought Mephibosheth should have went with him, because he was like one of his family. He was his son. Well, Ziba told Mephibosheth that he was going to saddle up a donkey for him, and for them to, he'd come get him or send somebody to get him. But instead, Ziba saw his chance to get everything that Mephibosheth had. So he run and told David, he wants to be king. When Absalom kills you, he's going to set up his kingdom. David should have realized right there that that was a lie. But see, David was conflicted. He didn't really, I think he thought kind of, okay, if Ziba run off, why didn't you? Because he asked him. He could have found somebody else to saddle the donkey for him. He didn't have to wait on Ziba. And it's like he was giving him excuses. And I think that's what David, he didn't know who to trust. He didn't know to believe Ziba, or he didn't know whether to believe Mephibosheth. And that's why I think he divided everything between them, because he didn't know which one. But David, see, he gave both men the benefit of doubt and made judgment which benefits both, and it might cause even to facilitate them being friends again. So he does not ask, Mephibosheth does not ask for anything. He acknowledges David's graciousness to him in the past, and also he is unworthy and undeserving of any special treatment from David. He then seems to waive his rights to what David has given him over to Ziba, which whether he actually did this or not, it don't really say. 31. Now Barzillai the Gilead had come down from Rogelim, and he went on to the Jordan with the king to escort him over the Jordan. 32. Now Barzillai was very old, being 80 years old, and he abstained the king while he stayed in Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. The king said to Barzillai, you crossed over with me, and I will sustain you in Jerusalem with me. But Barzillai said to the king, how long I yet to live, that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? I am now 80 years old. Can I distinguish between good and bad? Or can your servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Or can I hear any more the voice of singing men and women? Why then should your servant be added burden to the Lord the king? Your servant would certainly cross over the Jordan with the king. Why should the king compensate me with this reward? 37. Please let your servant return, that I may die in my own city near the grave of my father and mother. However, here is your servant Chinham. Let him cross over with my lord the king, and do for him what is good in your sight. The king answered, Chinham shall cross over with me, and I will do for him what is good in your sight. And whatever you require me, I will do for you. All the people crossed over the Jordan, and the king crossed too. The king then kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned to his place. You know, Barzillai is kind of one of my favorite characters of this whole story. Here is this elderly man, 80 years old, who loves the king so much he goes out to help him. You know, when David was on the run, he would bring him food, he brought him bedding, they brought the people clothes. He sustained him while he was in Manningham. He was generous. He provided for the needs of him. And now David's going back to Jerusalem, and he goes to great efforts to extend his feelings for David, his friendship, his hospitality. And it's some 25 miles from Manhattan back to Jordan, where David will cross, and another 25 miles to Jerusalem. This old man accompanies David to the Jordan and beyond to Gilgal, and now says goodbye. So David wishes to show his appreciation to him for what he's done for him, and he offers to set him up in his kingdom and take care of him. But Barzillai wants none of it. He gives him his son instead. And we'll see from later on what he told Solomon to do with him. He does not wish to personally benefit from the generous offer David makes him, but he does propose to give him his son to stay with him. 1940. Now the king went on to Gilgal, and Chinham went with him, and all the people of Judea and half the people of Israel accompanied the king. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said to the king, Why had our brothers, the men of Judea, stolen you away and brought the king and his household and all David's men with him over the Jordan? Then all the men of Judea answered the men of Israel, Because the king is a close relative to us. Why then are you angry about this matter? Have we eaten all the king's expense, or has anything been taken for us? But the men of Israel answered the men of Judea and said, We have 10 parts in the king, because we also have more claim on David than you. Why then did you treat us with contempt? Was it not our advice first to bring back our king? Yet the words of the men of Judea were harsher than the words of the men of either. You know, their sandals are hardly dry before here they start fighting again. After crossing over there. You know, it kind of reminds me of kids. In the back seat, they'll be friends for a little while, then they'll start bickering and fighting. Something don't go their way. So here the Israelites begin to dwell on the fact that the men of Judea are not only initiating David's return, but are taking the lead in bringing him home in this parade. No one seems to recall just a few days ago they were out chasing Absalom, do they? And they are arguing over who should be doing it. And you know, not one of them, Judea or Israelite, inquired of God. Did they? God was not in any of this, was he? There was envy, jealousy, had begun to be aroused, and finally the Israelites began to verbalize their anger and frustration. How come the men of Judea are telling us what to do? Who appointed them to bring David back? So here the men of Judea, they were just fighting and arguing, and that's all they done. Judea and the other 10 tribes. And you'll see there was 2 kingdoms divided because of this, the northern and the southern kingdom. It goes from bad to worse. And I'll talk on it next week. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, I just ask you to be with everyone here, dear Lord. And dear Lord, just let them know that they need the King of Kings. That the King may have been absent in their lives so long that they need him brought back. And I want to know if you have strayed and tried the world only to find discontentment, unhappiness, and heartaches. You come and you go through the motions, but you really don't have the joy unspeakable and full of glory. If you are aching to have a touch once more from God upon your life, if you are hungry for a real and genuine, not imitation, 2 Corinthians 7:14, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come to him and will sup with him and he with me. We need the King back in our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.